Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Growth Frequency podcast. My today's guest is Eric Whitmoyer from My Biz Coaches, and I'm very happy to get into our conversation today. So, Eric, could you please introduce yourself and tell us about what is it that you do, about your business, and about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate the opportunity to be on today. So My Biz Coaches, I started that approximately just over 6 years ago. What we do is we help companies who identify that they are ready to grow and scale their business. And so we help them identify where they might be stuck and then what we could do to kind of move them from where they are to where they want to go. This business actually, it really kind of it's an accumulation of years of experience. 24 years in the wireless retail industry. So in the US here, I sold every carrier actually back when it was paging. So you may be old enough to remember paging, but yeah, paging to cellular and then to wireless digital technology. I did that for 24 years. I helped companies who were resellers for the carrier. And so basically what we did is we owned and operated stores that were branded like the carriers. So it's very much like a franchise relationship. That's important to understand because I personally opened about 150 stores throughout my career. And to say that I was a sales executive hardly explains all the work that I did and the different types of jobs and responsibilities I had over the years during that career. And what's important is just what you learn when you're in those kind of growth phases. So the last company I was with, I was employee number 9. We went from 9 stores to 141 stores. We were doing about 190 million in revenue. So, and all the growth that comes with that, right? So there was over 1,600 employees, and we sold the business in 2017. So it's really important to understand, when you go through that kind of growth, there's a lot of things that you deal with, right? There's a lot of things that happen throughout the years, and what you started with is usually not what you end up with, which a lot of people don't necessarily understand that about business. Often business owners get into a business and think, I'm just going to go be a landscaper, I'm going to be a contractor, I'm going to be a whatever, and they don't understand all the nuances that go into building and growing a business. And so I saw that firsthand throughout my career in these companies that I worked with. I helped 2 companies grow to over 100 million in revenue. Now, concurrently, in many scenarios, I actually owned my own business while I had a full-time job. I had a couple of businesses. I sold them to go to college, decided I didn't like accounting and I didn't want to be an accountant. I liked the practice of accounting. I didn't want to be an accountant. So that's what led me into the wireless industry. But I share that because that background in finance and accounting has served me very well, not only as a business owner, but also as a coach. Because what I've identified is a lot of clients struggle immensely with the financial aspect of running a business. So a lot of the things that I did early in my career before I started the coaching business really kind of set the stage for and helped me identify the opportunities in the coaching space when I first got into it. But so the time that I spent there, at the number of businesses that I've had 15 of my own. One of them was a trucking business that I took to $6 million. One was my own wireless entity. I grew to 9 stores and was just over $1 million. But again, I can relate to the average small business owner because I know what it's like to take an advance on a credit card to cover payroll. I also know what it's like when you build it correctly, you put the right infrastructure and systems and processes, and you hire correctly, and how that can grow and scale and what that looks like over time. And then I've been a part of acquisitions, I've been a part of exits. So there's a lot of pieces throughout that whole process of being a business or an entrepreneur, I should say more specifically, and the business owner process. So it's been a great education, re-education, I guess, but a great experience helping. I've had 117 clients now in 6 years. So helping many of them grow throughout that. My average client stays with me for about 3 years, so I must be doing something right. But it's as I said, it's been a great experience. I really loved it.
Wow, such a story and such experience. I mean, that's great.
Appreciate that.
How do you balance your role between being the CEO and a coach for your clients?
Really good question. I would like to say that I do it well. I probably do it okay. I will say that adding some people to the team has had a huge impact to the business for myself personally. Like many small business owners, initially couldn't necessarily afford to build out a team, so I had to do that slowly over time. But adding virtual assistants, brought in some people to do the technology. We have our own podcast as well, which we've done over 150 shows. So having people to delegate to after being an executive for many years and having teams of up to 400 people, it's been helpful to just not try and do everything. So to answer your question about being, as a coach, I'm delivering on the expectations of the client, right? And helping them do what we do for them, at the same time kind of identifying where's the growth opportunity in business coaching, where could we take this business, how much bigger could it get. The coaching, well, the creator industry as a whole is like a $250 billion industry, and they expect that will triple by 2030. So when we look at opportunities like that, and I don't consider myself necessarily a creator, but as people like yourself doing a podcast, that is very much a creator space and an education space, and they are projecting that there's tons of opportunity there. So that balance is I'm constantly looking and projecting down the road of what opportunities there are for the business, at the same time trying to carve out. And so I put in a lot of more hours than I probably care to sometimes, but allocating my time is probably the best way that I can say that I balance the two. So the mornings are reserved for times like this, where it's visionary type things that would take the business to the next level, putting getting out on podcasts, conducting our own podcast, but allocating that time for those things. What I see most business owners struggle with is they don't set time aside to work in the business. I'm sorry, they're always working in the business. They don't set time aside to work on the business. Strategically think about what is it doing. So I have to allocate that time, and it's usually about 4 hours a day that I do that.
Okay, My Biz Coaches helps a lot of entrepreneurs go from chaos to clarity. What do you think is the biggest reason most small businesses struggle to grow consistently?
Okay, so this is going to be a slightly longer answer. There are this has been an accumulation of understanding and experience over the 6 years that I've been coaching. In the first year, all I did was focus on sales coaching. That was my background and experience. That was very comfortable with. After my first 3 or 4 clients, I quickly realized that the average small business owner is phenomenal at their chosen trait or profession. People that I work with are exceptional at what they do. They could be a painter, a plumber, a landscaper, a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer. They're generally good at their profession. What they're not so good at is running a business. All the nuances that come with running a business, whether that's staffing, and developing people, setting up systems and processes for operations and things like that. So as My Biz Coaches evolved, what I started identifying is, okay, people need a system to plug into, right? And they've already got a business that they're running. And what we find is there's what I call the 6 core competencies. Those 6 core competencies help us determine, each business owner brings anywhere from 1 to usually about 3 of those 6 core competencies inherently. Just naturally, they are gifted in that way and they're comfortable. It could be sales, could be marketing, could be operations, could be finance. But whatever those are, usually what's keeping the business from where they want to go are the ones that they're not so good at. And there's only 3 ways to solve for those problems. And that's to hire somebody to do that role, to partner with somebody who can do that role with you, or to outsource it. And so as business coaches, our solution is to help you outsource it until you're ready to hire for it. Because what we've also learned, and I've seen it years and years, if you're a business owner, you're not really all that good at sales, and you try and hire a salesperson, that usually doesn't work out very good. Because you're not clear on the expectations, so it makes it very hard to manage somebody to a certain level of expectation if you don't know what the expectations are yourself. And that's true of finance, and that's true of any of the different disciplines within a business. And so the truth of the matter is, if you outsource to a coach or a consultant, we use a lot of fractional executives, fractional CFO, fractional CMO. Those people then can step in because they're competent and capable in their skill set apply it to that particular business, help the client get through that phase. And then eventually, as the business continues to grow, they'll identify, okay, now we're ready to bring this in-house. And in some cases, they determine, you know what, we don't need to bring it in-house at all. We can have a fractional HR solution. We don't need an in-house administrator or something like that. So that's kind of the process that we walk people through. And just to be clear, those 6 core competencies, the first one is leadership and vision. So you have to very clearly be able to project where your business is going and share that vision with your employees. The second one is financial acumen. So being clear on your finances and understanding your numbers, which is a big gap for most businesses, ironically. The third one is sales and marketing. That's pretty obvious. Operational excellence, that on also is very obvious. That's the fourth one. The fifth one is people management. I see a lot of business owners struggle in that category as well. And then the sixth and final one is customer service. So fulfillment and ensuring that your clients are happy with what you provided them so that they want to come back and do more.
That's so valuable. I hope you cover it all within your courses. I mean, I'm just downloading the information where it's like me.
Yeah, we're
That's
actually
very fast.
appreciate that. We're actually my new book coming out is called The CEO's Playbook for Scale, and in there I outline the 6 core competencies and all the data that I use to determine those challenges and opportunities. I did a series of interviews and uncovered a lot of different from other people who work with business owners, and when I started recognizing we all had the same challenges or frustrations as we relate with business owners or we work with business owners, a lot of the same challenges over and over and over.
Have you noticed any big shifts in how coaches and consulting firms need to market themselves, especially with AI, content automation, and different like social media trends?
Another great question. Yes, absolutely. I started in 2019. My first client was what we would call a prove it deal. I didn't do it for a lot of money. I was doing it for the back end, right? So once the sales increased by so much, then I'll get a percentage of the sales. So I sat down with a company that was doing a rate around $1 million, and I told them I guaranteed them a 20% increase in 6 months. And they're like, how are you going to do that? And I'm like, well, that's kind of what you're going to pay me for. But as it plays out, the opportunity was that they were never following up with their existing client base. So all I had to do was reach out to their existing client base and market to them. So anyway, point is that 6 months later, sales are up 28% and everybody's high-fiving, and then COVID hits. So now there's this huge pivot. Everybody doesn't know what's going on. And through that process, I changed not just doing sales, but also introducing finance, education, operational structures and processes. And during that time, I pay attention. During COVID, everybody's on Zoom, right? Everybody's doing everything on. All of a sudden, everybody's doing everything on Zoom. I was doing everything in person initially, and so I'm like, okay, that's a huge pivot, right? So big pivot number one. Everybody's online. Everybody's doing things through Zoom, and then it was really cool to be a coach. Somehow, some way, everything it was like it was in vogue to be a coach, and so during that transition, 2021, 2022, I changed the brand to My Biz Coaches, and as I changed the brand to My Biz Coaches, I started hiring and recruiting other coaches, recognizing that I'm not necessarily the flavor for everybody. I can be a little direct, maybe sometimes not quite as soft as I need to be. And so I have other coaches that I can make introductions to for my clients in case it's not a good fit, and or the depth and understanding in a particular area. So what I see a lot, to answer your question a little more directly, is there are a lot of people out there talking about mindset. And I am a certified life coach from the Canfield organization, Jack Canfield. He was the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, but he also wrote a book called The Success Principles. And there's a lot of people out there talking about mindset. And the biggest battle for a lot of entrepreneurs is getting out of their own head, right? It's whether or not they believe in themselves. Can I do this? They get stuck on certain things. But without practical application, business strategy, like things that are actually going to improve your business, like sales strategy or marketing strategy and things like that, or how to write an SOP to actually help get things done in a business, that's not business coaching. Might be coaching, right? It might be mindset coaching, but it's not business coaching. But a lot of people masquerade as business coaching, or because they work with business owners, they call themselves a business coach. And I don't fault them. I get what they're doing. But the truth of the matter is that when people have an experience and they're looking to fix their sales or their marketing, and that person, that coach can't quite help them or doesn't really make the impact they're looking for, a lot of the clients that I bring in are clients that have worked with somebody else and didn't get very good results. And they're usually pretty gun shy when they come to me because they're like, well, what do you know? And I'm like, well, I've scaled 2 companies to $100 million. I have 15 of my own businesses. Okay, well, let's try with you. But that is definitely something I see happening. And then I just alluded to earlier, the growth, right? I call it the creator economy, and that's what the term is. But I see that impacting coaching dramatically. And then the last question, or the last piece of that you referenced, was AI, and that is game changer. I would say right now I've written in the last 6 months, no, probably the last year, I've probably written more articles. Probably 50% of my articles are AI based in some way or another. We're leaning into AI very heavily, not because AI is going to replace coaching, but because if you're not using AI, you're going to get beat by other companies, either whether it's coaching companies or it's just regular small business owners. And one of my biggest arguments with the average small business owner, particularly people closer to my age, a little more seasoned, they're stubborn. And they're like, oh, I don't need to learn technology. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. In the past, maybe you got away with it, but this is coming too hard and too fast. And it's going to make impacts in a way that if you don't get on board now, you're going to get left behind. And so it is a very important part of business in general, but coaching specifically. I would say to any coach who's not leaning into AI and identifying how you can use it in your own business, you're going to get beat to the punch by others who are already adopting it.
Yeah, because a person who is not willing to use AI for some tasks or automation, they start to look a bit slow
Mm-hmm.
with the daily tasks
Very much.
because you can automate so much or use the help of AI. So the workload is actually increasing, but it takes less time to do those things. So the things that in the past took several hours can be done with 5 minutes now.
Yes.
And if you're not doing that, then your employer or your boss can look at you and say that, oh, you're a bit slow, like you're not worth the salary anymore. So definitely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I would add to that for yourself, somebody like yourself or myself, like with our podcast, 3 years ago, you get done with the show and you got all the editing you have to do. And then you want to break it into reels and you put that on social media to promote it. That was hours of work by somebody who has the patience to sit and watch an long format video and create reels out of it. And now AI does that in minutes. I can upload an hour long interview, and in within 20 minutes I can have 30 different pieces of content. Now I got to sort through that a little bit, but that's a game changer. That would literally be 10 hours worth of work. Now we can do it in an hour.
Yeah, and you and I can manage it. But
Yes.
in the past, you needed to have this expert who does editing or filming or social media content. So, yeah, Riverside that we
Another
both
great
use
example.
is
Yep.
amazing for it.
Agreed.
Yeah. Do you think traditional funnels and ads still work in this space, or does everything need to feel more authentic and relational now?
Another great question. Well done. I would say yes, I think they still work. However, I agree with your second part of that statement, which is authenticity. Yeah, the authenticity is the key. And I think that the even for the podcast, I don't. For instance, my podcast, we don't edit at all. We just go live. We don't worry about editing after the fact. It is what it is. Generally, don't have too many things go wrong, but if people want real conversations with people, and so when we do our interviews, people want to just hear the story, hear the conversation. They want to understand how you got to where you are. And I think that part of that is one, we have a what do I call it, a trust deficit, right? We can edit because what we just talked about with AI, we can edit every component and I can only give you the little pieces I want you to see. And I think that social media, for all its good things, also some of the bad part of it is I can just show you the pieces that I want you to see and not all the pieces. And that creates a little bit of a trust deficit. People are I'm not sure that I'm seeing the whole story here. So I think that things like a podcast that you do and you're honest and you share things and you're open about it, that carries over. And I think that that's going to play out in marketing. I think that that's going to be a big piece of marketing going forward. And the more production that you do in marketing, I think is actually going to be less relevant, and it's going to be the more real that your marketing is. I think that we're going to see a play. And I think part of that was it was exacerbated by COVID because everybody went inside and I was originally, it was all networking, right? In networking events, physically out and about in the community and networking and things like that. And I was on stages doing presentations and talking about my knowledge, and all of a sudden that was gone. And then we had to all go do webinars if we wanted to try and do that kind of work. But I think what people are realizing is I want to get back out there. I want to press the flesh, touch the hands, right? Shake hands with people, see people talk eye to eye and make those connections. And I think there's a lot of value in that. So if we can leverage the technology the way that we do, right? For instance, you and I are in two separate countries and we're conducting this interview, but at the same time, supplement that with the interperson connection. People are craving that right now. And I think it was because for 2.5 years, everybody turned inward and we didn't, connect. And now we have the opportunity to go back out and do that. And I think you're going to see that play out substantially in our marketing strategies and how we go about growing our businesses.
Definitely. How do you currently manage client acquisition? Is it through referrals, organic marketing, or do you do some campaigns or ads?
Great question. Yeah, so we probably built everything that we do today on networking and referrals. About a year ago, started leaning into, as we grow and scale and add more coaches to the base, we are looking at different types of marketing strategies that we can employ. We do a lot of LinkedIn. As I wouldn't call myself an influencer on LinkedIn, but I have like 31,000 followers. So that has helped generate exposure. And I publish daily on LinkedIn. I have 3 newsletters with 15,000 subscribers between the 3 of them. And I do a lot to build the brand and build recognition around coaching and what we do as coaches. So I leverage that creator space to help get exposure for the brand and what we do. And then we are leaning into some AI solutions as it relates to lead gen on LinkedIn specifically, reaching out and highly targeting people that are the right solution particularly for our high ticket coaching. We offer both a high ticket and a low ticket. So on the high ticket coaching, it's, very specifically businesses that are, 5, 10, 15 million that are looking for leadership development or operational systems and procedures and so we'll target those businesses specifically with that type of marketing campaign. So it's evolved over time, but we're getting more and more strategic with it all the time, which I think a lot of coaches are going to have to adapt to that. I think that's a big factor going forward because of the technology.
Yeah, the lead generation is very hot at the moment in both with the cold emails and also on LinkedIn. So if you do at least one of those, you can get many great leads.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually leaning into cold email as well.
Great.
Yep.
That's a good idea. If you think about scaling your business, what part of your success feels the most manual or hard to delegate?
Mm. Because what I've done to this point is so much based on my knowledge. It's getting the knowledge out of my head and putting it into other people's heads. So the model that I built with My Biz Coaches, as we started bringing in other coaches, we have 27 other coaches that work with us. Of those 27 coaches, they all kind of do their own thing. And all of us are not, it's like, I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. What I do know, though, is I've got a pretty good system and a process that gets results consistently. So identifying that with other coaches and helping them, say, okay, if you're struggling with this component, let me help you with that. But your discipline, your experience in, let's say, finance is far better than mine. And so I'm going to defer to you, right? Because I'm kind of a jack of all trade for myself personally, I've got a little bit of all of that, which is likely why it's easier for me to see when other owners are struggling with it. Whereas if I have a fractional CFO, they're not really paying attention to sales and marketing strategy. They're just looking and analyzing the financials and helping companies in that particular case identify what are the financial metrics that they should be measuring, and they're not. So for me, it's letting go of some of that and allowing other people to come into that space and say, hey, this is where I can contribute. But part of that's identifying who are those people that I can really lean on that will maintain the mission, which is our goals and our mission, but at the same time bring their flavor and their personality and help contribute in a meaningful way. So that's probably for me as we scale the business. That's one of the things I'm very conscious of.
Yeah, and also you have so many hours every day. Like you cannot double yourself
Yeah.
or triple yourself.
Trying.
You're trying.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell. But at the same time, yeah, if a new client comes to work with your company or someone else, and they know you by name, they know you as the influencer or as the main boss or the CEO, then they probably want to have not the same experience, but a similar experience like they would have with you, so that the knowledge that they get from the coach is more or less the same. Because if it's very different, then it can actually limit your growth, because the businesses or the new clients, they might not get the experience that they are hoping to get. But if it's more like, this is our model, this is what we do, this is who we are as the group of coaches, then the clients can be less disappointed, if you understand what I mean.
Absolutely. No, I feel that every day. Trust me.
Okay, what does the ideal version of your client acquisition system look like? Something that feels very personal, something that is semi automated, or a mix of both?
A mix of both. Yeah, I think that from a volume and speed perspective, there has to be some automations. There has to be some technology and components of that. But there has to be, at the end of the day, when you're selling coaching specifically, I mean, I think that's true of pretty much any sales, but particularly in coaching, it is about the individual. So have to impress upon you that my level of understanding and competency will help you absolve the challenges and frustrations that you're dealing with. And often in coaching, particularly, what you're dealing with, what you're struggling with, is not necessarily what's affecting the business. Often, what you're dealing with is a byproduct of one of the challenges of the six core competencies that you're not capable or not comfortable of adapting. So, for instance, if you struggle with finances, and I say finances, there's a lot underneath that category, but if you struggle with finances, you likely don't have good KPIs, key performance indicators, to identify whether your business is growing or stagnant or whatever the case may be. But if you don't have those numbers in place, often what we find is you're not making good decisions based on data. You're making decisions on gut instinct. And that
Mm.
can serve you in some regards. But when you're not using data to make good decisions over an extended period of time, particularly as the company grows, now what happens is you're making these rash decisions based on what you feel like things are happening. And when business owners start to do that and not leverage the not technology, but the data that would be available, and it takes the technology to put it together. But when you don't do that, you're not necessarily making the best decisions. And so as a coach, helping you understand, hey, look, I know you've been doing this for a long time, but what you're not seeing are the things, what you don't know, what you don't know. And so if you as a business owner can learn some of these other things, if we can help implement some of these things and help you make better decisions based on data, then you're likely to scale much more effectively. And so as a coach, helping you understand, getting you through that process, there's a lot of mental conversation, or there's a lot of discussions that need to take place for that to really resonate. And that's not going to happen the first time we sit down and talk. So again, I come back to the point. It's got to be a personal interaction. It's got to be, you've got to believe that you can trust me to help you do the things I'll give you a quick example. And I think this is really relevant, Laura. My first client that I referenced the early on, and then we went through COVID together, they asked me to come on and be their fractional VP of sales. So that's what I did in the early part. I saw them through the death of one of the partners. I saw them through the exit and the closure of the business. I saw them through all these different aspects. And each time it was like I was a trusted confidant. If you're familiar with mafia movies, I was a consigliere. I was the guy that they're like, okay, what do we do now? Strategically, what's the best decision? And so we'd sit down and we'd hash that out. And as a coach, that's what you hope for. That's the relationship you hope to build with your clients. For the clients, that's what they'd really like to have, but they're not always sure that they can trust the coach. And so a big piece of that is helping to learn and develop that relationship.
Yeah, and eventually it all comes down to the relationship between
Absolutely.
the client and the coach or whatever the service might be. Because people, they buy from other people. It's like one of the easiest rules.
That's
Like,
right.
I have to like you enough for wanting to work with you. If this connection is not there, no system or no AI can replace it. Yeah. All right. My last question would be, where do you want your company to be 6 or 12 months from now?
Hmm. I'm going to go with 12 months. I have a very
Mhm.
ambitious goal to get to 100 coaches in 12 months. That will require two separate sales strategies or marketing strategies. One is for finding clients, right? And the second one is finding coaches. And be, the model for the coaches is more of a licensing model. There are in the United States. I'm not familiar with. I know some of these companies are international, but there's companies like Action Coach and Growth Coach. These are franchise opportunities to be a coach. I'm not a big fan of franchises, just personally. I think that there's a better way to do it. So what I'm doing is I'm licensing the opportunity to become a My Biz Coach. I'll call it a certified coach. I'm still going through the certification, identifying what that looks like. But what's important for me is continuity in coaching. I mentioned that earlier. I think it's an important component and why some clients are, some people are frustrated with the experience they get in some cases as it relates to coaching. And so if I can help more coaches be successful, one of the things I've identified with coaches, great at what they do. Again, similar to a business owner, very few are really good at selling themselves, and even fewer are good at selling and marketing themselves. So, and there's a lot that goes into that. There's that am I good enough? That do I have the experience that I need for this particular client? I mean, we go through that imposter syndrome sometimes. But what's important to identify as I scale that is helping provide a platform and a solution for my coaches to be able to plug into and then provide them the guidance to scale that business. So that's one component of my business, and adding those 100 coaches. The average coach has between 10 and 12 clients. So that would give us about 1,000 clients. And so that's I don't know that I'll hit the 1,000 clients within a year, but by the end of 2026, I'd like to have the 100 coaches and growing to that 1,000 client base.
Then it's definitely necessary to clone you
Yeah.
or produce more of you with your knowledge and your experience, because I think this is the how to say, the secret sauce
Mm,
that
absolutely.
has made your company successful. That's a nice goal. I hope that you achieve it.
Thank you.
Eric, thank you. It was amazing.
Thank
I loved every minute of this conversation. So thank you again. And to everyone who listened to us, let me know how was it, and see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.